Afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Ask Conti. We are delighted to have you join us today, and we have a very special and necessary guest today, Cabby Brooks. Cabby, do you want to introduce yourself and tell everyone what you do?
Hi, my name is Cabby Brooks. I am a marriage and couples mental health therapist. Uh, I practice in the state of Florida. I'm the owner of Empowered to Prosper Therapy Services.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us today. We want to talk about how, when you are going through a divorce or a family law issue, we want to talk about how therapy can help you through the process and not only help you, but help your children. So we're excited that you tuned in and that you are listening because this is something that I wish more people knew about, that more people felt comfortable of getting the help that you need. Everyone sees a therapist at some point in time.
Right.
Therapy is a great tool. And so in family law cases, we encounter a lot of clients that want us to be their therapist as well as their attorney. And
Mm.
so we're trained with how to help you navigate through your legal issue, but we're not trained on how to help you cope with the different changes that you may experience in your life and the different emotions. So, Cabby, let's talk with that or
Okay.
talk about that. What tips do you have for someone who is grieving the loss of a partner they thought was going to be their long term? So whether it's whether they're not married and they're dealing with a custody issue, or if they are married, and then it seems like the how do you cope with the emotional part of a divorce or a separation?
Well, I would say first off, like you said in the beginning, go to therapy. Like your attorney, like you said, you can help navigate the legal aspects of it, but you don't really, have the time devoted to help with the emotional parts of it. And I think that's just it, just understanding that losing a relationship or losing your marriage, losing your life as you know it, losing how your household runs, that's all a part of grief. And with grief, there are different stages. So if you're not equipped to, go through those things alone, to coach yourself through when you're stuck in that denial stage, then, and most people are not. So you need to go to therapy so that your therapist can help you process those emotions and understand that, hey, we have to move out of this, denial and blaming stage, or you will be emotionally stagnant. You can't get past that. You can't get past blaming your ex for things that happened in the relationship in your home when that's not happening anymore. So it kind of makes you very stagnant without someone there to help with that emotional piece of moving forward, healing, but also moving forward.
Okay, so that's a good point. So what
Hmm.
we see a lot are that people, they come to us and they're not working with a therapist at all, and so they end up spending way more money with us because we bill hourly. So I'm going to assume that your hourly rate is less than our hourly rate. Okay.
Absolutely.
And so when we're trying to get them to make decisions or we're trying to strategize, they're so caught up in the emotions and
Yeah.
what they did to them and how they hurt them that
Yeah.
sometimes they can't see that, yes, this person was a horrible spouse to me. This
Yeah.
person was a horrible partner for me. But this person is not a horrible mom, is not a horrible dad. And so sometimes those emotions and those feelings interfere with trying to figure out what's going to be in the best interest of your child or your children.
And I,
So, like, what tips do you have when someone's trying to, or talk to me about, like, when someone's trying to work through their anger and work through their pain, but yet still allow the other parent access to be a good parent in that child's life?
what I wish a lot of couples would do, and I know this is in a perfect world, right? When things
Right.
are beginning to go bad, get therapy then, because then you can kind of help each other understand what's going to work for that process. Some people are very, very understanding in terms of, okay, we have to split now. What does that look like? I don't want to see you and your ex together. At least give me like 6 months to a year. Those are the conversations that you can kind of have with one another if you do the therapy before things get, high conflict and you all can't even be in the same room without, tearing each other apart, regardless of who's in the room. So, for one, I would say go to therapy before, even if you don't know if it's going to work, if you want it to maybe work, if one person is still ambivalent and they kind of want to be there, they kind of don't want to be there, go to therapy at that point so you can figure out, if we can't make this work, how are we going to separate amicably? How can we make this work so that we're okay and so that our children are okay? And I think that the most important thing is to decide that you're going to make your child's mental health priority, because your situation is not the only situation that's falling apart here. Their homes are being disrupted. Life as they know it is pretty much over. And then also know that sometimes co-parenting doesn't work. It's a beautiful thing when it can work. It's so beautiful when they're together at every step of the way. But therapists are also there to help you understand what parallel parenting is. And that just means both of you are equally involved, but you might not be able to be in the teachers' conference together because you're not listening to what the teacher's saying, right? You're angry with the person, with the parent sitting next to you, and that doesn't work. So maybe you have to do two different teacher parent conferences. Maybe you can have limited contact. Maybe there has to be two separate holidays. Some parents do holidays together. I have clients, they still have Christmas together. It's a beautiful thing when we can step outside of what's happening in my life right now and how I'm still hurting. You have to deal with those things with your therapist and learn to put your child's mental health first, because you're still essentially adding to their trauma narrative, and you have the ability to stop that. You can stop that at the point it is now. You do not have to add to it, in a sense, with fighting with your spouse.
So I think that sometimes clients are kind of uneasy about going to therapy because they think that it's going to be used against them. They think that, if it comes out that they're seeing a therapist, that people are going to think they're unfit or they're not, they have issues, but that's not at all the case. I can say
Right.
that in my legal experience with like trials and hearings, I've never seen a judge punish someone for trying to be the best version of themselves. Like I've never seen an instance where it's like, oh, you're in therapy. Oh no, you're unfit. Like
Right.
I think that we have to, really change the narrative because there's nothing wrong with therapy.
At all. Good.
So, and I think too, people, they say they want to go therapy with the other person. Well, I mean, that's great if you guys can do that, but it's really about, too, how do you communicate with your children about what's going on? Like you said, how do you stop adding, to the trauma? And so, people are like, oh, they didn't want to do counseling or therapy. Well, it's not about them, it's about you.
Yeah. It's
Right.
about you. Yeah.
And so, I mean, I don't think people really understand. Like, if every client could have a therapist while they are going through a family law case, our cases would probably settle, quicker. People would spend less money because
Yeah.
it's a whole process to try to, for us to try to help them, figure out the legal part of it, try to help them with the issues that they really should be seeing a therapist for, but we're not qualified to really help them with that. It's a process. And so if people would just hire a therapist at the beginning or before things get bad to help coach them through and to help them through all of this, it
Mm-hmm.
would save clients thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars with their
Mm-hmm.
attorney.
I would be really surprised if there is a judge in the world that would look at that and not think that as a positive. If a client could say, I realize that this is going to be a really hard process for me. I don't want to further traumatize my child. So I went to therapy to figure out how I can get through this in the healthiest way possible so that my child can get through it in the healthiest way possible. Now, I can't think of a judge that wouldn't say, that's
Kudos.
great.
Good job.
Yeah,
Right. But
right.
people really think like, oh, I don't want people to think I'm crazy. And
Yeah.
also sometimes when people suffer from, anxiety, when they
Mhm.
have certain conditions and they're not getting the treatment they need to help them, that also can make their attorney's fees increase because it requires more hand holding. But if they
Yeah.
were to go and actually either see a therapist and then go to a psychiatrist or whatever they need to do to help them cope with whatever the issues that they are, dealing with, that would help tremendously as far as helping people keep the bill down with their attorneys. People are always asking me, how, what can I do to save on my attorney's fees? Work with the therapist.
Yeah.
Like that's
And
like,
use your attorney for what you're actually there to be used for, and not calling when your spouse has called and you're upset and he called and he's not supposed to call. Like, go to therapy so that you can learn some emotional reactivity. Like, you can't
so talk
control
about
what
that. So
yeah.
hold on, Cabby, you're dropping gems on
Oh,
us today. So hold on, let's talk about some of these gems.
yes.
So can you explain the difference between co-parenting and parallel parenting?
Absolutely. So co-parenting is when the only thing that has changed is the fact that we're not in the home together. We're still going to basketball games together, or at least showing up. We don't have to sit together, but understanding that our child has a basketball game. They like for us to be a united front. They're used to us being together at these games, or at least both being in the building. Let's decide that we're still both gonna be there, so that doesn't have to change for our child. When a parent conference comes along, we're not withholding information and blaming the spouse that, well, if the teacher knew your number, you talk to the teacher more, she'd have your number to call. So it's not my responsibility to share that with you. In co-parenting, both people have decided, yes, we're going to share information along the way. If I get some information pertaining to our child when they're with me during the week, I'm going to relay that information to you. Sharing in insurance bills, braces, if the child wanted to be an activity, deciding that that's going to be a conversation, and then we're going to share in that responsibility. So that's co-parenting. Like, we're there, the child see us still acting together as a unit, even though we're not one. Parallel parenting is kind of, we've decided to um, be cordial, and maybe not. Sometimes it's pretty much for high conflict couples. We've decided that that's best for us, that we can't really be cordial. So I'll make sure that, when the child is with me, I do things the way that I'm doing them in my home, and therefore you can't dictate how I'm doing things in my home. If I decide to let my child have their cell phone until 10 o'clock at night, that does not need to be a conversation for us. Maybe it's 7 o'clock in your home. So basically, we're doing things separately on our own terms. There's limited contact,
Mhm.
and that's basically the difference.
And then you mentioned something about you're readjusting your activity. What did you say the last you were saying before I asked you to go into this? You were talking about addressing your
Emotional
issue.
reactivity.
Emotional talk. What is
Yeah.
that?
So in therapy, we have techniques. We have many techniques and tools, but one of those are learning to help our clients understand emotional reactivity. What's healthy for me to react to? What is going to happen if I decide to continue to react to things that causes me anxiety, gives me high blood pressure? So, in understanding that I can't control a lot of things in this world around me, the only thing that I can control is me and how I react. So helping them sit down and process and talk that through. Literally, sometimes we do skits and we say, your spouse calls with this situation. What does a normal or healthy reaction look like? What does a unhealthy reaction look like? And sometimes clients are somewhere in the middle. Sometimes they are far left to where he better not call my phone or I'm cursing him out. So our job is to come in and help you understand what it looks like. If I react the way to the left, what's going to happen after that? It's just a spiral effect. We start arguing, our child hears us, then we have to be remorseful, and then we're guilty because of the way that we reacted. So we kind of help with teaching you how to react to certain things. And the fact of the matter is, you just can't control everything around you. You can only
Right.
control you. Yeah.
So can we do some role playing now?
Okay.
Gabby,
Sure. Okay.
I want this to be a good resource to
Okay.
people who are going through the situation. So I come to you as my therapist, and I find out that the father of my child has a new girlfriend, and that the father introduced the new girlfriend to our child and didn't say anything to me. And I am livid. I am hot. I'm upset. This is the girl he cheated on me with, right? How dare
Yeah.
he introduce this child, introduce this woman or
So
other
much,
word
yeah.
to my child? What advice would you give
Okay.
to me if I were your client in that situation?
So I think the first thing that I would definitely do is validate my client's feelings. Like, that's very frustrating, right? Tell me how you feel learning that there is someone new in your child's life?
Mhm.
That's the question. So I would expect that
I'm
you to
upset. I
answer
can't
that.
believe it. How dare he, not even talk to me about it. He's continuing to disrespect me, you know.
Mhm. So it sounds like that hurt. It's hurtful,
Mhm.
right? You're annoyed by that.
I'm
Um,
livid.
you're livid. It's angry by it. So tell me, what are the negative aspects of this person being introduced in your child's life?
He
Tell me
cheated
what your
on me with
thoughts are.
he cheated on me with her, and
Okay.
I don't want my child around her at all, ever.
Okay. Do you have any feelings of being replaced by this person? Does it feel like you're being
Yeah,
replaced
yeah, in his life,
in your child's life or in your spouse's life or
in
both?
my spouse's life.
In your spouse's life?
Mhm.
Okay, so is it safe to say that you have not moved on from, that situation? So we need to talk about that. We need to talk about what you want to happen next. It sounds like that you and your spouse are not going to be a possibility anymore.
Mhm.
So what can I do to help you begin to move on?
And that's like, that conversation needs to happen
Yeah.
a lot with
Yeah.
individuals, because then the next issue is, I don't want that woman or that whoever to
Mhm.
pick up my child from
Yeah.
school. I don't, and it goes on and on. And that person may be good
A
to you,
great person. And
right?
the thing is, the client in that time, and I can imagine you see a lot of this, they don't know what that emotion is. They're just mad. You need to acknowledge that, wow, I feel like he has just moved on so fast. And like you said, I feel replaced, like they're replacing me. And so we
Mhm,
would go through processing. Are you being replaced, or are we learning to move on? It sounds like he's learning to move on.
mhm.
That's not your life anymore, so we have to figure out how we can help you to move on, move forward, not move on sounds so hard, but to move forward.
So that's, yeah, so that's a great example of why people need to see a therapist, because when the therapist can talk to you about all of your emotions, all of your feelings, why you're upset, and help you figure out how to move forward, right?
Mhm.
On the legal side of it, I mean, they don't care that he has a new girlfriend. Is a new girlfriend a convicted child molester? Or, what I'm saying, like, unless
Right.
it's something that's extreme, it doesn't matter. And that other person, or your ex, is going to be allowed to designate a third party to help do pickups, or whatever else. So the
Right.
law is not going to have, um, it's not going to care about your emotional feelings.
Side of it.
Right. And so I think that it's important to, again, work with a therapist to deal with those issues, so that when it comes time to us to apply the law to your situation, you're
Mhm.
not upset at everyone else because you don't feel like you're being heard.
Right.
Right. And
It's
so
so
that's what I see
important.
a lot, is that people, I don't feel like you don't hear me. It's not fair. I feel like, and the I feel like,
Yes, you've
is
already you've
that's
already lost the lawyer. Like, I feel like we're here to, put you in the best situation that we can on, in the legal stance. We're not here to feel
right.
every emotion and go through every tear with you. That's just not, separation
Right.
of
And so it's,
roles.
and not that we're gonna, we listen to our
Yeah,
clients, we work with
absolutely.
them, but it's just, when you hear that, I feel, it's like,
Yeah.
okay, let's, we're gonna go in and, to talk you through it. But if you work with the therapist to deal with all of that before you come to me, you will probably spend less than half of what you
Yes,
normally would in a family law case.
I can imagine. And our fees are definitely, minimal when you compare them to legal fees. So,
So how often do you think, like, so someone just found out that, whether it's a co-parenting, or whether they're trying to figure out how to, raise their child or their children in two separate
mhm.
homes. So whether it's a divorce or it's not a divorce, like, how often should someone, go to therapy initially, like when it first happens? Like, is it good to go once a week? Should they go more than once if they can? Like, what do you suggest for people initially?
I think every situation is different. In high conflict cases, I definitely feel like they should be there every week. And sometimes, I have a coaching package where I can check in with you, midweek just to talk through how some things may have transpired and what needs to happen next. But definitely, I think consistency is key with therapy, because oftentimes people come and then they're like, well, I went once or twice and that didn't really help me. Well, we're trying to heal from maybe a 25-year marriage. So coming once or twice is definitely not ideal. I think that you need to devote at least 2 to 3 months consistently when you're first starting out in therapy, so that you can learn what you don't know yet. There's so much to learn about yourself, especially on the other side of a divorce, because some couples have just thrown themselves into their spouses. They don't know what life is supposed to be after the divorce. They don't know what they like anymore. They don't know how to be on their own. And so it takes time, at least 3 months, 2 to 3 months consistently for a week. Sometimes we can stretch it out to every other week if you're consistent with that.
And I think people don't realize that therapy really helps you kind of with, gives you tools to
Yes.
deal with people,
Yes.
right? I mean, so if you're getting a divorce or if you're splitting from the other child's parent, it's you're going to have to communicate with this person in some way, right?
Mhm.
Until the child reaches the age of majority. So,
Mhm.
going to a therapist to help you figure out, okay, how to effectively communicate with the other person, how to
Yes.
react, what you can control and how to react, right?
Yes.
When they come at you sideways. Like these things can help you and help your child have a healthier, mental, their mental, improve their mental health. So they're not,
Absolutely.
you know, basically repeating and, being traumatized by
Yeah.
this more than what they already are. So it's really like, really kind of sharpening your tools and your tool belt and helping you figure out how to communicate with this person effectively until the child reaches 18 years old.
Yeah. And if you can't communicate effectively, figuring out some way that works. So sometimes the other spouse, especially if they're dealing with certain diagnoses like narcissistic personality disorders and things like that, it's really hard to, you're not going to be able to communicate. So learning the tools to deal with that, just make it cut and dry and move on, and don't get emotionally tied into what that person is saying and what they're doing.
So you brought up a word that I've heard more in the past year than I think I've heard before in my life. Can
Yeah.
you talk about how to deal with a narcissist? I have several people who call me, I'm married to a narcissist. I'm in a relationship with a narcissist. And
Mhm.
like, do you have like, can you just shed any light on or provide any guidance to people who call, on how to deal with their situation or what they can do to kind of help them navigate that difficult situation? And even talk about you know, what is a narcissist?
Mhm. So the important thing, I think, when you're dealing with a narcissist, the most important thing, if you can remember this, you really don't need to know a whole bunch of other things about a narcissist. They thrive off of control. So the moment that they can get you to veer off of whatever you called about, showing any other type of emotion than you initially called. So we start out a conversation and we're just talking calmly. Hey, I need you to pick Timmy up from football today. Remember, it's your day. And then that narcissistic partner starts to talk about something else. And the minute you get elevated, like they've literally won. Their goal is to control some portion of you, because they feel like if they could control you still, then they still have that control over you. So the important thing is to call, be direct, don't veer off of what it is that you are calling about, and discontinue the call. If you call in and you really need to communicate, hey, I'm in Atlanta and the school just called. I'm not going to make it back in time. I need you to pick him up. And they start with, well, this always happens. You're never where you're supposed to be. I need you to pick him up. I'll also call my mom as a backup because it doesn't sound like you might be able to make it. Just calling to let you know I need you to pick him up. I'm not going to make it. Disconnect the call. But the moment you start going back and forth, it's just a losing battle. So it's just
Like a gym. I mean, because I have people who call me. I've heard it. People say it. He's a narcissist. She's a narcissist.
yeah,
I've heard it said so many times recently.
yeah.
I think that's going to be really helpful. Like, don't engage.
Don't engage, and do not engage at all. A narcissist, there's no accountability there. The need to control, usually that comes from some aspect of trauma in their life that has gone undiagnosed, untreated. And so that need to control others and their situations and their surroundings. is basically what that disorder is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, do you have any other gems to drop on us, Kat? Because you're dropping a lot of gems
I
with
wrote
us.
some notes so that I didn't forget anything, but I think we covered a whole lot. I think that people need to understand that um, therapy is a space where, especially in family law cases, where you can come to hash out your grief. Anytime you lose something, a job, a spouse, your home as you know it, you're going through grief. It's also a great space for couples to sit down and hash out a financial plan. Because a lot of times they're forced into bankruptcy because they can't sit down and figure out, now that we're separate, things have to be taken care of separately. And then someone's prideful and don't want to pay for this and I'm not paying for that. So it's a great space to sit down and figure out if we can save our financial picture because we're splitting. So that's the only other thing I had here.
Oh, no, this has been very, very helpful.
Yeah.
I think that we need to have you on maybe in a couple of weeks. We can have you come back on and we can talk some more and maybe give some more advice and tips to everyone. But if you want to
Absolutely.
reach Cabby, so do you do any virtual? Like, how do you? Is it just in person? Do you do virtual? Can you talk
Both.
about that?
Yeah, so I do virtual and in-person sessions in the state of Florida. So my license only covers me in the state of Florida. I have people oftentimes reach out from different states, but this is where I can practice. I'm in Melbourne for those of you that like in person. A lot of people like that feel of just having their space. That's their day. We're face to face. I'm located in Melbourne off of O'Galley Boulevard. And my virtual sessions are on a portal similar to this where we'll connect virtually for sessions.
All right. And can we give your contact information now? So if you want to reach Cabby, she's great. But if you want to give information, we have it at the bottom of the screen.
Mm-hmm. Yep, my contact information, my phone number is 321-328-0422. I do offer free consultations. So if you want to call for me to get a feel of you, for you to get a feel of me, and if I can help with your situations, definitely give me a call. On Instagram, I am at Grenita_Brooks. And on Facebook, I'm at Empowered Prosper is my Facebook handle for my business.
Well, thank you so much for taking time to join us. And I'm sure this information will be helpful to many people who review this. And it will, help them cope and figure out a better way to go through the process and hopefully to get a therapist.
Yes.
Okay. I'm telling you, if you want to save money on your family law case, hire a therapist to help you help us.
Absolutely.
To help you get you to your place of peace quickly. Right. And so I think that, that's important. I'm Conti Moore with Conti Moore Law. You can reach us at 407-831-0203. You can also find us on Facebook and on Instagram and on YouTube at Conti Moore Law. We have a lot of videos that we put out, a lot of content. So if you have any questions, you can probably go and find an answer on our YouTube page. So anything else, Cabby?
That's it. I just want to say thank you for having me. It's good to speak with you.
No, thank you for joining us. All right. Yeah. Well, everyone have a great day. And remember to stress less and choose more.